I'm back exactly where I was before. So how about I bore people with a completely different topic while I continue to build this ridiculous thing I'm building. I still needed this, right? Okay, so, see, without prompt, it's a little difficult to just assume a topic. Alright, so that last whole thing stemmed off of the fact that they have, through gene therapy, cured some leukemia. That's great. What other science things have happened recently? Trilobites with freckles. Recently discovered in upstate New York. They fossils frequently, extremely frequently, have bits and pieces of their insides, even inside the bones, but often where there was muscle and various things like that. As they fossilize, parts will crystallize or be replaced with certain minerals like calcium and pyrite. Or, sorry, not calcium, calcite, which may actually have calcium in it for all I know. It's pretty common. Like, there's a really popular find. Find is a rockhounding term where a location has been discovered that has nice gems or nice metals or nice fossils. And this is one spot where they have these fossilized clams that are, I don't know how old. I almost suspect they're not super old because calcite is a fast-growing crystal. But basically the insides of these old clams are filled with spear-like calcite crystals, which is kind of cool. But pyrite, which is often referred to as fool's gold, also frequently replaces parts of fossils as chemicals change and pressures and all that stuff happens to the fossil. So actually trilobites have often had outer shell modelings in their fossilized form that up until now had always been some sort of mineral replacement like that, and very frequently pyrite. Pyrite being ferrous sulfide, it's iron and sulfur, and they form, shiny yellow crystals that people have in the past confused for gold. One of the interesting things, though, it's not exclusively true, but pyrite can be induced to grow because of biological circumstances. In part, actually, the Permian extinction, which, by the way, sorry to freak everybody out, but the Permian extinction is a climate change extinction, and it is the worst extinction in the discernible. I say that as a disclaimer because maybe there was one that was so bad that it's not even showing up in the fossil record. But it is the worst extinction we've been able to detect in the fossil record, at somewhere above 95% of all life gone. All life, all species. May have been like 99.9% of life, but what few species survived then got to re-explode into new populations. They're not directly correlational, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the reason why it was such a huge extinction. Well, first off, what is now Siberia had an eruption, or you know how the characteristic of Hawaiian eruptions where they're slurpy and slow and lazy and they just kind of ooze out for long periods of time, and they spurt out at first, but they're not particularly violent. They don't explode, at least not yet. Older volcanoes might do that, but those are very young. And so they just sort of ooze out gently in the grand scheme of things. All things being relative, right? I am going to have to backfill this with rooms. So it's a ramp, but there's all this space that needs to account for something. Anyways, yeah. Well, basically, what is now the area of Siberia and began and endured about 1 million, at the very least, years of consistent, slow, oozy eruptions, similar to what we have in Hawaii these days. And volcanic eruptions are notorious for belching out carbon dioxide and a few other things. Actual sulfur something or other actually has the opposite. It's more of a coolant than a warming agent, like carbon dioxide and water are both warming agents, and they're roughly equivalent to each other. Water vapor, that is. Seriously? That's all I accomplished? Oh. Excuse me. I'm going to have to do a guide myself in a different way. But, what am I saying? That's a floor. Makes this a floor. I'll just do one side for now, so that it serves as a guide. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is a new floor. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If that's a floor, then what I should do is nix this. I'll get some back to help with the next gauge. Or maybe just from here. Okay, but anyways, it belched out essentially 1 million years of carbon dioxide, which, as you might guess at this point, means global warming as we understand it in modern context. And it's true. That's what basically happened. So it got to the point where the way that water circulation around the ocean circulation ceased, and because the continents were positioned very differently at the time, this is like 125 million years, or maybe it's 225 million years ago, they were very different from now. So which meant ocean currents had different things to deal with. Bear with me as I figure this out again. But in any case, what happened was, at least as far as we can tell, and we're not that bad at it these days, the oceans stopped circulating. And when they stop circulating, oxygen quickly is depleted, because they're, even fish breathe oxygen. They bring it in through the water, through their gills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the 8th one is definitely that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this is starting to come together here. Apologies. So basically, almost everything in the oceans died. They couldn't breathe anymore. Did I do both sides? I did. Okay. Well, that was unnecessary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, here. That'll serve. Okay, so what are we talking about? Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm confusing myself. I might as well complete this. But that's not even the worst of it, okay? I didn't really aim to be gloom and doom, but this all began with trilobites, didn't it? Which basically predated this. This isn't even a trilobite event. But. Oh, man, I really am lost in my own topic. I'm sorry. Anyways, the Permian was a climate change extinction. In part, sulfur. That's where I was going. Sorry. However, even though most everything died in the oceans, and to be fair, there are so many things on land that depend on eating things in the oceans that when they died, the things that depended on eating them died. And so far, the oceans are absolutely connected to what happens on land. That's true today as it was back then. But more importantly, all that biological material waiting around to be metabolized and eaten basically by bacteria, even the bacteria that anticipates being able to metabolize oxygen as part of the process couldn't. But there are other ones that can do it without oxygen. They're basically called anaerobic bacteria for lack of oxygen. And I'm so low on this stuff. Whew. And these anaerobic bacteria, probably not 100% of them, but basically the vast majority of them, breathe or metabolize. And unfortunately, the terms might not be interchangeable. I might be screwing that up a little bit, so forgive me if I am. Sulfur. Okay, so they basically either metabolize / breathe it. Okay, and one of the nasty side effects is sulfur, hydrogen sulfide, I think. Hydrogen sulfide sounds similar to what's right, but it might be wrong. But basically, it is the gas or the chemical that we recognize as rotten egg smell. And it kills us in most everything very, very quickly. In fact, that is why we can smell it at something like they said, if I read correctly, 7 parts per million. So for every 1 million molecules passing through our nose, only 7 of them have to be hydrogen sulfide for us to smell it. And the reason why we are so sensitive to it is because that is an indication that you're supposed to run the other way. Get as far away from that smell as you possibly can. Okay, it's because it's fatal. Absolutely fatal. And the side effect being, though, that it meant there was quite a bit of sulfur. Can I even get back up there from here? I cannot. Wow, have I cut myself off? That's no good. But all that sulfur being concentrated because, it was metabolized and concentrated by these creatures while they were cleaning up the debris of a massive extinction. And became widely available to mix with the iron that's naturally in salt water. Or at least our salt water. I don't know if it's naturally in salt water as a rule, but it's in our salt water, definitely. Quite critical to all of our bodily functions. And so, iron, sulfur, pyrite. So basically, pyrite can frequently be found, not exclusively, but frequently found in slate, which is sedimentary stone, consistent with having been highly compressed. Sand, soil, not soil. Frig. I really got to get back up to the top and examine how far I've gone. Well, the original point is, I think it's neat that, it's slate, right? Slate. It's basically highly compressed, flattened, and crap, the entrance is on the other side. Sorry. Like seafloor material, mud. Just like sandstone is sand converted back into stone, and various other things are. Slate is compressed layers of what used to be the bottom of a watery body like an ocean. And in this case, it's filled with iron and it's filled with sulfur, and they combined it and started crystallizing into cubic and some other shapes, but frequently cubic crystals of pyrite, which is a very popular thing to find. And it's also why oftentimes fossils that can be found in the same strata, bottom of the ocean, especially post-extinction, would start having parts of their fossilizing bodies replaced with this fool's gold. So that's all very neat to me. And frankly, I realize there are people who completely deny global warming or don't think it's going to matter. You have to understand, as a warning, I don't want to be gloom and doom, but in part I'm not entirely, because we can still do stuff about it. But if an extinction level event that took out 95% of all species and probably 99% of all living things, at least of larger than microbe size, if that could happen at such a slow increased pace of a million years or roughly, then if we've done the same thing in just a couple of hundred, that's the difference between, and I will not gesture, walking into a wall and hurting your nose and careening into it with a fighter jet. Okay, there's a significant difference in the amount of damage you've just done to yourself by reaching the same end at a highly accelerated pace. So I want people to think about that and take the world and contribute to solutions and stuff. Okay, so let's talk about something else. Let's see. I still want it to be sciencey because that's easy. Obviously, I've been talking for a lot just on 2 science topics. So, with trilobites, frequently they have modeled textures based on pyrite or other inclusions, but these ones they found are actually their original spots, which means they had, or at least this particular brand of trilobite, had freckles, essentially. Was that there before? It's not there now. Oh, right. So here's one floor. 1, 2, 3. Shoot. Yes, I can count to more than 3. I'm just not sure if that counts as a boundary. 1, 2, 3. That's definitely not 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oops, crap. Oh, thank you. I hate it when I have to go after, especially swimming. Yep. So, original spots. What else happened recently? So much to fill in. Maybe I should have made these. Man, it will be immense if I take it every floor down to the ocean level. This thing is going to be freaking huge. I don't think I'll have some nice tall walls. Those will look impressive from my distance. I think I'll cut it off at 5. So this was 4 right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Shoot. I messed that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the next tier. So another few that way and I'll be done. So it will actually extend beyond the end of the island. Man, 52, so 22 will be the end of this episode. Oh man, what else sciencey happened lately? Now, I'm not sure if I should describe this or not. Should I surprise you? No, because the amount of construction I have to do, it'll just all suddenly be done, and that won't be fun for anybody. I'll probably have to redact some of these walls, but that's okay. Whew, I am so low on supplies. And I had so many supplies to begin with. Okay. I'm going to have to do a lot of mining. But hey, that'll keep me busy in doing things that are not episode worthy. So that's good. I can actually play with a happy conscience. One thing I can do. I wish you could mix your slabs. You could have one of these slabs and then one of the white ones up here. But since the idea is when you've reached a plateau, it's going to curve around, I might as well buy a couple blocks back and do that. And it'll also help serve as an indicator for me if I start to forget what the plan is. Doink. Man, I'm still kind of upset about my missing axe. I have no idea what I could have done with it. Literally only just moments before I started the previous episode, which was, at this point only 45 minutes ago, I had it, and now I don't. So sad. No. Okay. Sciencey stuff. Rockhounding is cool stuff. It's science related. It's geology. I recommend it. Do it now. Rockhound. I demand it. Basically, if you're not familiar, it's the activity of hiking out to some place that, basically a quarry. Most rockhounds, I don't even know if that's true. Many rockhounds don't even do their own blasting. They go out with a bag or a backpack, a pick hammer, a little 3-pound pick hammer. If they're particularly, a little shovel, like a camping shovel with a little swivel thing to tighten it up. And if they're particularly adventurous, a big old sledgehammer, like some 30-pound thing, and chisels. If they've come to a rock face and they want to start splitting it apart and getting at what's inside, they'll start hammering in these chisels, and then they'll fling this sledgehammer around and separate the rock. And it's really difficult work, but it's rewarding. It's a day out in the wilderness. Watch out for ticks; they do suck, literally and figuratively. Oh, wow, I am out. I am so out of this stuff. I wish you could recombine these back into blocks. That on a whim. That would be nice. Oh. What else have I got to do? I'm going to have to make so much stone. Right. Well, you know what that means, so I'm stupid. Look at this. Holy crap, master. I can continue. Pulling all the stone back out. I haven't been using any of those, so I'll leave them. Okay, so yeah, rockhounding. It's a fun activity. You can find gemstones, you can find precious metals, fossils, as previously mentioned, under a slightly different topic. And, it's a good hike. Sometimes you can actually rockhound right on the side of the road. Like the aforementioned pyrite in slate. If you're driving along the interstate somewhere, or, your country's equivalent of an interstate, and you see sort of a blackish, dark gray, kind of smooth texture to this, not much variation to it, you can, assuming it's not illegal where you are, pull over, and if it turns out to be slate, you can, I don't know what the odds are of you finding, but you can literally pry these apart and start finding pyrite cubes, or even fossils in between. When I was up in upstate New York, where these in the general vicinity, county-wise, 1 or 2 counties away, where these trilobites were found. I went biking for a couple of hours, and I stopped, and I saw slate-like, probably slate rocks on the side of the road. So I was like, cool. And I started picking them up and looking at them, and literally the fourth one I picked up was just full of little fossils. And I got the impression these were like super ancient. That can't be true. Otherwise, they'd have metamorphosed, where the slate starts to bend under the pressure. And this was still straight. So maybe it wasn't that old. Or maybe it just didn't undergo that process. Whoops, I don't need to do this. But, it was a nice flat piece of slate. And it had the indentations of small, not microscopic, but small things like a centimeter at the largest. And that was quite neat. So we're talking 4 stories. So one more. So one here. See, I've reached the limit. Oink. Yeah, oink. Flying pigs. Let's do. Hey. Okay. Ooh, I should harvest that at some point. Sorry, I'm just gauging where I am here. That looks alright. I wish I could see better in the dark. I should get my cat to do this for me. He's not so evil that he wouldn't do it. Or is he? Oh, I can use this opportunity to fill this out a little bit. Right, so yeah, rock hunting's fun. In my native Maine, it's a gemstone kind of state. And to be fair, our gemstones, I don't know if it's just because the Appalachians are particularly old mountains compared to some others. But, and, if you go to New Hampshire in particular, the granite, or, no, it's pretty much granite, over by Moat Mountain up by Conway. And it's so ancient, so abused that you can literally tear the rock apart with your bare hands. And this is granite that you're doing this to. And it comes apart in this Amazonite and which is a feldspar, and some really sharp and good colored smoky quartz crystals. Okay, but pegmatite veins, which is really coarse. It's essentially the same stuff as granite and marble and whatever, but it's very coarse. The pockets are very large, which means crystals had a better opportunity to grow over the millions of years that varying types of crystals take to grow. Ooh, let's not die over this. Right? Right. I say right. You say right. We all say right. Whew. This is a project, in case you didn't notice. Maine has a fair bit of pegmatite veins. We also have granite, which has been used in a lot of constructions around the country and probably even out of the country. I've seen claims that parts of the Washington Monument can owe their resources to quarries in Maine, or at least there's a place in Maine at this bridge that says over there on the horizon, because there's an observatory, is a quarry that has supplied some amount of marble or granite, I can't remember which, for the construction of the Washington Monument. But when you actually go to the Washington Monument or some of the museums around here that talk about it, they make no mention of this. So I'm not sure if it's not true, or can you institutionally lie about something like that and get away with it? He asks, having survived the Bush administration. Yes, I don't like that administration. I'm sorry. That's just the way it rolls, I guess. But yeah, Maine is pretty famous for its tourmaline, but if you went to Brazil or Pakistan, or I might not need to go this high up, or some of the western states like California and stuff, there's tourmaline out there as well, and sometimes the color is more intense. Not necessarily, but often. There's a quarry, Mount Marie, I think, which isn't even a mountain, it's like a field. And the guy who owns it just had a feeling, and he acted on it, and it worked out. But just actually, has a video he put online from this, where he talks about, he's sort of self-interviewing, I think, auto interview, and a familiar face shows up because this guy we know named Dwayne C showed up, and it's like, oh wow, I know that guy. But I guess in that particular circle of interest, it's a small world. But Maine still has a couple good finds, and actually one or two of them are here in DC, in the Smithsonian Natural History Museum. Is this Jolly Green Giant? Basically, there's a place called Newry, or a town called Newry, and there's a mountain called Plumbago that has at least two quarries, the Twin Tunnels and the Dunton Gem Mine. And at the Dunton Gem Mine, I don't know, 100-something years ago, this guy who was leasing it or owned it at the time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a couple more, and then I'll have to call it. Oh, geez. I should have called this one already. I'm going over. Shoot, man. My episode lengths. I'm just going to let it go a little longer. I'm sorry. But I can't really. I mean, I can, but I'll just do the same thing in a couple of minutes, and I'll feel bad. Anyways, just like this guy in Mount Maria was mentioning, and his find, this guy just had a feeling that he was on to something with his particular prospect, I guess you could call it. And he arranged for some black powder blast to further burrow into the quarry wall. And I'm not sure what the circumstances are, but he died as a result of it. He was killed in the blast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the end. And a large pocket. When you're looking for gemstones, except for things like corundums, which basically are so heat tolerant that they grow in magma and then remain intact even as the magma cools and forms solid rock around them. But in most cases, or many cases, gemstones want space to grow. Tourmaline is not. Stop! Holy friggin' cow! What's going on here? That was not me. I was not doing that. Anyways, he was killed in the blast. A large pocket was opened, and in it they found what is now called the Jolly Green Giant, which is still to this day the largest known gem-quality green tourmaline ever found. Found in Maine, found under strange circumstances, and there was another circumstance, and when I've told, I will then cut off the episode. There's another quarry called Bennett, somewhere further south in Maine, but I can't remember where. I want to say Sanford, but I don't think so. Anyways, it's down there, and this is a really kind of a crappy story. A pair of guys were leasing the quarry, because oftentimes they're just leased for the duration, and they bring in their bulldozers and black powder, and they blast away things and get the best pickings, and then maybe they stop leasing it for a while, and the owner of the place opens it back up to the public, and so rockhounds like us. Is there a shadow? What is that? You see what I'm looking at? So I guess I should make a wall out of this. This is the end. Okay, so they'll come and pick around. And actually, we've been to the Bennett Quarry, and we have found bits and pieces of what was found that is famous for that location. But so here, ta-da! I've constructed a thing that is probably meaningless to you for the moment, and is quite large. So this is going to be fairly impressive, more than I thought, more than certainly this graph paper I drew on shows. Anyways, these guys, this pair, jointly leased it, and they did their blasting, and they opened up a pocket, and they found a morganite crystal. And when it first was exposed, it was orange, but for some reason, morganite turns pink after it has been exposed to sunlight, and it varies from circumstance to circumstance, but this happened in this circumstance. And anyways, morganite is beryl, just like aquamarine, just like emerald. It is in fact pink emerald is morganite. Maine is pretty good for this stuff. I don't think we ever get green, but we get blue and we get cyan/aquamarine and morganite, which is actually named after J.P. Morgan, who has a controversial past. The person, not the business, who actually owned the business when he was still alive. But anyways, they found this thing, and it was huge. It's like 20 pounds. I mean, imagine a gemstone, pre-cut. Obviously, a lot of gemstones are not cut because they are so nice in their original matrix form. It would be a travesty to cut them. And this was one of these cases. So it's kind of a hexagonal shape, and it was orange prior to changing color, and it's still part of the matrix. But this thing was huge. That there was a picture of it, and you could see a pick hammer next to it, and it was bigger than the pick hammer. And this generated a lot of buzz because this is just an amazing find. I mean, imagine an emerald that big, and this is more rare than emerald, frankly. And it's just not as well known for some reason. Hi, cat. No, stay away. Not just yet. And Smithsonian, the same one that has had a Jolly Green Giant from time to time, I think it's traveling at this point. But anyways, they wanted it. And they offered like $6 million for this piece. And this was like 25 years ago. So that's a lot more money than it is today. Like twice or three times as much money. And no one, in fact, if you try to include this news, this thing that actually happened on the wiki article for what the stone, which is actually termed the Rose of Maine, somebody comes along and deletes it. They don't want to admit this ever happened. But for some reason, they couldn't decide how to split the money, or maybe they decided they didn't want the Smithsonian to have it. I don't know. That's speculation. But something absolutely insane drove them to, instead of trying to just selling it and splitting the money, they decided to split the stone, and they destroyed it. Something that they had been offered $6 million for, they were barely able to get enough shards from it to have about $10,000 worth of morganite stones cut into gemstones for jewelry. Okay, so that's your loss there. And that is a horrible story, but at the same time, it's just nice, the state you're from, Maine, is responsible for two extremely renowned stones having been found. And that's my story. That has nothing to do with me except that I lived there and was born there and am a Mainer. Oh well. I'm calling it an episode. As you noticed, I kind of gave up doing anything. This serves as my boundary. This dictates the rest of the shape, because I know this was an axis. This was the longest axis for the shape that I have defined as this castle. So now it's my measuring stick. It's my yardstick. I'm going to I'm going to start replenishing that stone supply that you saw there, because it's still going to go through that pretty quickly once this starts forming around the axes. So I can do that off camera. But next episode is probably more building once I have figured out the next step. It's either that or I will go exploring, show you guys maybe the other site I've picked out. Maybe I don't want to do that yet. But oh well. Oh well. Everybody have a good night.